This is Monica. Monica, do you have a notary public office near the Savannah Mall? Oh, you on the west side? Okay. Thank you. Yeah, that would be the perfect solution. Hey, how are you? Good but not good, does that make sense?
It does. Can I turn this down?
Turn it down. I just turned it up.
Turn it off.
It always,
I just turned it up to take advantage of what heat there was.
it always dries my eyes out.
Well, that and it's cold. When
Yeah.
the heat goes off.
That's all right, I can drape
Now
around.
that one's backwards.
This one's backwards?
The switch,
Oh,
um,
well, that's what I thought with that.
it starts off, the first thing is very slow. And then the next one, you either got it off or on the first one, either one. You probably got
That's
it.
all right, do it like this.
I don't
Because
know.
that one's, the switch is backwards.
Well, this is the
Ever
only
since
one
I've
that
been here.
seems like it bothers me so bad.
That's 30 years, that's over 30 years old. I've been here 30 years. But you know how a ceiling fan, the first thing is as fast as it goes.
Hmm.
Well, that one, the first thing is as slow as it
Now mine are slow, all of them. The first one is slow, it goes
goes.
faster
See, that's
and
what that one
faster.
is, and the rest of them are all, the first one's fast. And ours is the first one's fast, both
How's
of them.
your dad?
I need to get out, he's a little out of breath today. And Donna is on her way home. She had a doctor visit. And even if it goes, I mean,
It's really late.
she takes, well, it's just along with all the rest of the stuff. You know. She had this, see Dr. Nice. And he, sent her for blood work, and then he redid one of the prescriptions. And somehow when she got over to CVS to get dad's medicine and hers, they both use the same pharmacist over on Fuller Parkway. They had accidentally written prescription for 4 times the normal dose that she usually takes of iron, and with everything else she takes, that would have made her nauseous and cramp.
Yeah.
So they caught it, they called back, and anyhow. She just is now on the way home. We don't ever come home on 16 much, we come home. Fuller Parkway to, 80, down to Cherry Street, and then all the way across to John Carter and come over to 204, it's the quickest way. Anyhow, that's where she is. She didn't do too good at night, and it's raining and cooler, so she didn't do good in
I
rain.
must have had to drop, because when I came out, I had sprinkles all over my
Yeah,
car.
We may have.
But it wasn't long, I don't think.
When I get home, I've got the Chewy boxes to deal with. They came yesterday. I should have had it last night, but I was too sorry. But, you know, that's me. Get home from school, I still want to deal with 4 Chewy boxes. Have you ever dealt with Chewy? They're heavy. And Barry, I saw, was outside.
Yeah, he's on the phone.
What's wrong? Something bad?
No.
It was, I took the trash out. Tomorrow's our trash day. Is it tomorrow yours? Yeah. Just one. That's all I had, but they were full. The church's green one and our green one. Anyway, I've done
I
that.
don't have many recyclables anymore.
Well, you know, when I get rid of our cans, very rarely we throw away much recyclable.
No,
But
that's sort of gotten down.
I have a little bit that goes out every time. You know, Joey Kim's water bottles, they throw them, you know, usually when they're leaving. Usually, when they leave it on Sunday, they bring their lunch and eat lunch back there. And throw away the water bottles and stuff and stuff it out. If there's something in there, I have this thing, if there's anything in there, I take it out.
He'll be back on his regular schedule.
I think this
Or the one he used
is
to.
it. I think this weekend is it for them to be on the road. Long haul. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, this would be it. He has training on Monday, orientation, and starts driving sort of local. You know. Should we wait for Barry, or is he gonna be a while? Should we wait for Barry, or?
No, he's come in, I'll tell him we're getting ready to get started.
You're not good with Alan.
Uh,
You're not good with Alan. I mean, I don't want to disturb him, not be important.
no, it's not that important, I was listening and coming in.
Yeah. And Dad's over at the house, he's listening. He can't talk, but he's listening.
Okay. He's coming.
Okay.
I'm like, is she,
Well, that, I don't know.
didn't hear from her.
But see, sometimes with him being sick, I think Annie and Marissa live over there with him. And with him being sick, he can't drive, and sometimes she has to drive all of them to whoever's home.
Oh,
To work and from work and like, one time she gets mad.
Oh,
I don't think she'd care if I said it, but she came in and she was mad because their TV went out and she had to drive them to Walmart. And she was kind of mad about having to do it. And then and every time I go to Walmart for this happens. I pick out the one I want. It's out there, you know, on the big, and I don't have that one. And you pick out another one. I don't have that one either. That's what they did to them, and
oh,
you know, and she was kicked at them for her having this shirt. She had a TV, and she was kicked at Walmart. She didn't ever get mad about that. And when she does, it's pretty obvious. And I was sitting here trying my best not to laugh. But I did. She said, I know it's funny. All right. Let's let him finish up and we'll start with a word of prayer and then we're going to track Donna on the way home just to make sure she's okay. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day and all its many blessings. I pray that our worship will be fruitful and that we will do those things that you want us to do and get the meetings that you want us to get in the course of our work. Christ, we pray. Amen. Well, that's okay. Everybody has phone calls. I had one. Finally, I got hold of Donna. She's on the way home.
I had to talk to my dad.
Oh. Well, Donna's on the way home finally. She's got a doctor appointment at 3:30 today, and she just now is coming home. All right. Jesus has just, you know, and I have actually done this before. I don't want to judge Jesus too hard, you know, because he's, you know, I've done it with limited success because I saw it not work. one day.
Oh, no.
Who wants you?
No, it's all right.
Oh, okay. Just
So we're going
curious.
out with the most.
Okay.
Jesus has just kind of shamed this Canaanite woman, and then tells her in the end, "A woman, your faith is great, it shall be done for you as you desire." I'm not going to tell about the time that I did it, but mine wasn't that great with the youth group I had in Arkansas. But this youth minister we had in Florida, these two guys were friends, and he asked one guy to do it, and they got into an argument that we didn't know was staged. I can't remember what he said. He said, no, he asked him to do something. He said, no, I really don't want to do it. And Chris told him, well, this is important, David. You need to do it. And David said, I really don't want to. Ask somebody else. Here, y'all do it. He said, no, I want you to do it. And he got back and forth, and finally David said, you want me to leave? He said, well, if you're going to be a baby about it, yeah, go ahead and leave. And this was during youth group devotional. And David got up and left. And Chris said, you can come back now, David. And the point that he made was a valid one. I'm not sure that's the point Jesus is making here. But he said, look, I tied into David for no reason, and not one of you stood up for him. And I thought to myself, that's right. We just sat here and didn't, because we didn't want to get involved. And he said, I tied into him for no reason. It was unjust. I was kind of hateful, and not one of you stood up to me or stood up for him. And he said, that's what we all do in life. And he was entirely right. That's, I didn't agree with him much, but I agreed with both of them about that. That was a very, very good illustration. A little sensational, couldn't do it in a sermon, but, still, that's not bad. He's entirely right. And what gets me is, here's this poor woman. All right. And Jesus says, he calls her a dog, really. And not one of his disciples, and I'm not talking about just the 12, not one of those who are following with him or his 12 said anything. They just stood back and let him berate her. And I wonder if in the next verse says, departing from there, Jesus went along the Sea of Galilee. I wonder if while they were going, if Jesus had some sort of talk with them about that. Why didn't you, well, that's me. Why didn't you stand up for her? There's this poor old woman. She's worried about her daughter, and you didn't say anything to me? You didn't interject for her? Well, no, we didn't,
But don't you think sometimes it's like a group dynamics?
Mm-hmm.
They look at the strongest one in the group and say, well, he ain't saying nothing. He's usually loud, but I feel like, I'm not picking on Peter, but you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, but why isn't that? Why aren't they?
Well, when she was a Canaanite woman, it's like, she's like you said, she's Canaanite, she's a dog. What do we care?
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the Lord doesn't care, so why should we care?
Well, yeah.
I'm just following the line of.
I'm sure that's what they thought, but I don't think that's acceptable.
Well, I know that, but maybe Jesus was just looking, like one day I put something down at work, like a piece of trash, and I want to walk, see how many people go walk by and just step over it.
I did that here. I didn't put it down, but I saw it. I want to have it.
I watched 5 or 6 people just like, one girl stopped and looked and said, oh, they just walked on, like, so like the thing with the guy who got beat up and robbed, like the Levi's assistant, like, man, what terrible happened. Man, I gotta get to the synagogue to taste the souls. And this poor guy's over there beaten and half dead.
Yeah. And that seems to be human nature, but I'm not sure it excuses our actions.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not justifying their actions.
well,
Maybe it was a group thing. Jesus,
Yeah,
I'm gonna see what these guys are gonna do. But I talked to this woman. Like, first of all, you're not a Jew. Second of all, I'm not here for you. I'm here for my people. So that's 2 strikes against you.
Mm-hmm.
But what I like about it is her tenacity.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, look, I'm not leaving here until you fix this.
And she didn't care, say whatever you want. I don't really care.
Right? You're
And
the
all
chief.
through there that she had the right idea. say whatever you want. That doesn't make any difference. It's not gonna heal, that's not gonna not heal, it's not gonna kill my daughter, it's not gonna heal her. Say whatever you want. You just need to do what I ask you to do.
And to some people, like you said, when you tell the story, they just look at it, and I hate to speak this, on the surface level. It's like one day, I got into this discussion with this guy, and the guy he was a reverend, which, we all know is don't call anybody reverend. I didn't issue bargain. He was talking about Jesus' hands. He was talking about how they were pierced. And I said, if they were pierced, then they were broken. Well, no, they weren't broken. He did the Bible backwards and forwards. He said, because, he quoted the scripture in Psalms, none of my bones will be broken. I said, well, how can you drive a nail? Basically, it wasn't a nail. It was like a railroad cross. You think about a Roman crucifixion. They had it down to
one of the nails.
Yeah, they have it down to a science. I said, your hand, this is part of your wrist. The two bones, it went through. No. He was adamant it went through the hand. Look at every picture you see. But I mean, he was devout and believed. He said, oh, it was in the hand. It says the Bible, the hand. Okay, I said, obviously, we're going to be like in a rowboat argument.
Right. I can help you with that. In Greek, the hand can describe anything from the elbow to
Right.
the hand.
But the Romans were, you studied.
Well, it's probably not going to work that way unless, and some of the pictures, they know what you're talking about because they show the hands tied, they show the wrists tied to the cross.
They put the nails here.
They would have to.
Then they tied their arms.
Well,
Right.
that's how you die on the
Yeah, you
cross.
suffocate.
Yeah, you can't breathe that way.
And my thing, the Romans.
You can no longer pull your.
Well, the diaphragm came from. I know it sounds kind of morbid, like, no, I've never studied crucifixion. Why you ask me? The
Well,
Romans
we
were
had-
extremely.
I was in school, but
Well, the
Yeah,
Romans were very
it's-
adapted to medicine too. They had a lot of cures that
and
you
to
would
be
think.
entirely honest with that, in that passage, it really makes no difference
I know it doesn't make me or you.
where the nails
The
were.
hands, the wrists, that they tied him
Make
with.
too much out of a lot of things, but
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. This guy was adamant, and it had to be in his hands, because that's where the pictures were. I said, but if you believe the scriptures, it says,
Artist conception.
right.
and see, I was also taught when I was little, because of the pictures, that the thieves were not nailed to the cross, that they were just tied there.
No, the Romans pretty much nailed you to
No,
a cross.
not Romans, they wouldn't have ever missed that opportunity.
No, they
That's-
enjoyed killing.
That's gonna happen. But a lot of them wanted to be the hand, anyway, and so they picture ropes tying.
And they did, because like you said, you can't,
Sometimes they did, sometimes they didn't.
Well, they
I
still
mean,
could have tied
it's-
his hands and then driven a stake through them, that would have,
Yeah, and in Greek, that, and even in medical terms, when you use Greek terms, the hand refers to.
yeah, from the.
And by the way, even in baseball, because if the pitcher throws a ball and the batter tries to bat or bunt, if it hits the hand, he doesn't take a base because
is it
the
a
hand
foul?
is part of the bat. Because that pitcher cannot keep from hitting the hand that's holding that bat. Okay? He's hitting the bat. So even in baseball, it counts that way too. Okay?
Never knew that.
Yeah. The
I
hand
always
is
like Bugs
actually.
Bunny when he says, I'm gonna pulverize it with my Packard pitch. I look all the keys in it.
You gotta be careful with your button because if it hits your hand, you're not taking a base. That's a hit.
That's a hit, that's considered.
You're either foul or you're out. And that's the end of it.
But that's what I'm saying, this guy was so adamant about it being the hands, and I said, you know what, it's not worth arguing over.
Well, there's a lot of people that are too adamant about these little things. Instead of studying about it. All right, now, like I said, I've done this, and whether or not it's human nature, we really should stack
Don't
up
you
for
think it was a
people.
study
you
of
know.
the disciple and group
And
dynamics?
honestly, this is what's wrong with our American society. This is one of the things that I believe is wrong with, even though I think we have the greatest society on earth. This is one of the things that's wrong here. As long as it doesn't affect me,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not gonna stand up for you. And I tell that to kids, if there's a fight going on or something like that, the kid said, I could do nothing. I said, you're lying. You could have stepped between them, you could have come and got me, you could have come and got anybody,
Or maybe they were taking
we could
bets.
work together. I mean, I broke up a most huge fight back when, in the old middle school days, over 20 years ago. A bunch of girls
I wouldn't have gotten a little.
got into a fight. I didn't, but I still broke it up, and the kids helped me. I didn't want the kids involved in that. There's 9 girls in it. Oh, it started. It was horrible the way it started. One girl said to another one that it looked like she might be wearing church pants. And so they got mad. Well, they were going nuts, and me and another guy were out there, and the rest of them, I'm sorry, but if you're going to be paid the same amount as me, you need to be out there breaking at the same fight I'm breaking it. But they were women, and so they said, we don't break up a fight. We don't break up a fight. Well, the people that are fighting are girls, you're getting paid the same amount as me, and you're responsible as I am. Yes, you will do your best to break. I don't care what you do something. Even if you stand on top of a chair and make a fool of yourself and scream
Right,
and say,
screaming, yeah, the
you know,
police are coming, everybody
that actually
program.
works, by the way. If you, during a fight, if you'll stand up on a chair at school and make a fool of yourself, first of all, you've indemnified yourself from any responsibility because you've done something. Second, most often it works.
Well, I know.
Because the kids, oh God, and then they run away.
This is
Well, what
something,
we did was, and this guy was as big as I am, which means he was not big at all. There's no way we were gonna,
right, physically pull them apart.
when a wrist came out, I'd grab it and start walking. And then I'd fling that girl into the crowd of kids and then hold her. And in fact, a lot of them would march them on down to the office. And then I'd go over again, if I saw a wrist, grab it and walk. Because I don't care who she is, she's not gonna pull against me while
Yeah,
my 175 pounds are walking.
right.
And it came down to 2 girls, and he and I both did the same thing. As soon as we found her wrist, we pulled them apart. Some of them lost some hair, but we pulled them apart. But the kids helped. We all, did I break up the fight? Yes. But did he break up the fight? He also did. And did all the kids there help us out? Yeah. That's what happened. Had 2 boys did the same thing.
Well, what's that thing, I can't remember, and I'm probably going to say it backwards. But they said when they came for the Jews, I did nothing. When they came for this person, I did nothing.
Niemöller.
Yeah, and then he said-
Reverend Niemöller of the German Confessive Church.
right, he said, and then when they came for me, there was nobody there for me.
There's another poem you should look up on the internet called The Hangman by Ogden. Ogden. It's fantastic. I teach that where I teach the Holocaust. But the thing is, the
Is there a story
idea
called
is,
Hangman?
huh?
Digress, is there a story? Or
It's
is
a
the story?
poem. It's a
Okay, I
long
was thinking about something else, a short story about a hangman,
Well, it's probably long enough to get a short story. It's a poem.
I'll have to look it
His
up.
name is Ogden. Philip Ogden, I think. We need to get involved. Now, look at verse 32. Now Jesus called his disciples to him and said, I feel compassion for the people, for they have remained with me now for 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry, for they might faint on the way. The disciples said to him, where will we get so many loaves in this desolate place to satisfy such a large crowd? And Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? And they said, 7 and a few small fish.
They had already forgotten about.
They couldn't have.
it.
Can I ask you something?
How?
I'm not trying to be funny, but they watched a man take, 4 loaves and 3 fish and feed 5,000. Then they said, they had 12 extra baskets left
I don't
over?
think they had the fish in them. They said the loaves. And now they have 7 loaves and a few small fish. Donna's home.
But how could you see a man do this and think like, you know what? We think there's something interesting about him,
It's not being funny because I think we do the same thing today.
And I'll just have
We've
to be,
seen the power of God in the past, and yet we doubt it when it comes up again. And I can tell you that about my own life. I've been here 30 years, and we've never been big.
you know what, I don't like big churches, because for me, you can get lost in the shuffle, which I kind of like that. I mean, I'm kind of a,
Always been small, and every year in when I first got here, this was for probably about 10 years or more, I thought, will we be here next year?
of course we will.
Because we're so small. Well, I wasn't, and we've gone through in the past, not in many years lately, but we've gone through the money troubles, financial hardships.
Do you ever watch sports?
Olin was, very creative with the finances many times. They always paid me, they always made our
Yeah, Sandy-
bills.
You know, said he cooked the books, did you?
He was just, he could rob Peter, pay
Yeah,
Paul,
yeah,
and then
okay.
pay Peter back,
Right, in other words, I
later
take it from
on.
this account, and move it to that account to get things paid,
Well,
and
we
then
didn't
we
have
move
any
it.
accounts, but it was, different. But the thing is, he was very creative with his bookkeeping at times, not in a dishonest way, but, finally, I decided, when I went through that mess in Kentucky at the end, if you can win, I did it. I mean, it's the church bus, the church bus, if you can win, I came out and won inside of it. I didn't think I was going to, but the point is this. A guy came up to me after, because some people left, and said, we're not gonna have, I said, well, if it's God's will, we're gonna be here. If it's not, it's not.
Kind of
don't need
like
to be
guy
here.
acts and just,
And, he didn't believe me, but I did. And that church is still there, from what I understand. But I knew I had to leave because it all ended with me standing up in front of the congregation as the evangelist, which I'd never have had to do anything as the evangelist of a nature like that here. But I had to name the man's name and said, as your evangelist, I no longer recognize this man as an elder of this church, and I would recommend that you do the same. And he and his family left at that point. And some other people,
but really.
not many, but and actually we did better
Then he's good.
after that, but I knew that my day was numbered because even though I could have stayed as long as I wanted to, I'd still be there probably if I wanted to be. I would always be known as the guy who kicked this man out. And I didn't want that. I had seen what other preachers had done and what they had to do. I didn't judge them, but I knew that limited them to a large extent. So I left and came here. But, and that was the reason I had to leave. The reason I wanted to leave was because Dad was sick at that time. Of course, he got way better, but, what bothered me is that he and Mother neither one told me about it. And that got me. So I figured I need to be closer to them. And I was, and am. But they had already seen the power of God. And really, in my own life, I already had too. I had seen that we not only had problems, but in the end, at the end of every year, we were thriving. We were doing very good. When I first got here, we were being supported
Oh,
by Brentwood, Tennessee.
yeah,
I never met them. And I finally was very happy to write them a letter that it is now our turn. We appreciate everything you've done. It is now our turn to support others. And we no longer require your support. Please find another congregation that needs it. And we appreciate you for so many years. And we can never pay you back. It's really nice. And I never heard from them again. Ralph Henley got us that support. And Ellen Henley I sent her a copy of it because Rob had passed away by that time. But the point I'm making is this. They had already seen this happen, and we have already seen so many things happen, but yet it seems like we don't want to trust in the power of God when it happens. Again, when we're faced with another hardship of some kind, we don't want to trust Him again.
I think it's the hardships that you have to go through with, I don't know if it's not a lack of trust, but it's just so much mind-boggling stuff that goes on this side of eternity, you know?
It is, but we don't seem to lean on God the next time it happens, you know?
It's also sort of, not just trusting in the power, but the word.
Mhm.
You know, we have the Old Testament as
Mhm.
examples of God's power over and over and over.
Well, I'm
We have
going to
his-
depart the Red Sea again today, he departed the Red Sea.
Or,
Well, but not many
Mississippi,
people
real
in
deep.
fact believe that.
Yeah,
And also with that study of Samuel, I never had thought about it, but God had rules.
Mhm.
Well, I thought that, but he had rules of punishment for rape and the stuff that went on with David's son, and he ignored it, and look what chaos come after it. He was the personal recipient
Mhm.
of God's power and communication and words. And he, because of circumstances, it's his son. Nobody ever wants their own son to be punished. And so therefore, look at the murder, the chaos that went from that one little action that he didn't punish him.
Right. And
And it was huge.
Mhm.
The same with us. I know lots of people that their kids get in trouble and they just,
Brush
little
it off.
hand slap and don't do that again, stuff
and
like
it's
that.
not for their benefit that they don't get the hand slapped, you know, it's.
But it teaches your family, the other siblings and stuff, it
How
teaches
maybe
your
that you
family
handle problems, so they'll do the same
that
thing.
it doesn't matter much. God's word matters as long as it doesn't. But I have, all of the Old Testament to say, look at this. He did this was miraculous.
And it's an interesting story you brought up because, I think all of that really stemmed from David's sin of Bathsheba. Because Nathan said, "You will pay for it all."
Oh, yeah.
And 4 of his sons did die because of that. But David had been the recipient of God's power on both sides. He had been rewarded immensely,
Yes.
Yeah.
including the kingdom. He shouldn't have gotten it. I mean, by man's wisdom,
No,
Sometimes-
the odds were against him. I mean,
Yeah,
Saul had a huge
Every
army.
time.
He picked him out of obscurity.
Mhm.
I mean, it's like when they went to pick him. What was it? Samuel said, "Where's your other son?" They all kind of laughed. Like, you be squirt out there doing the grunt
Dirty
work?
work.
Yeah, the little knothead we call our brother. Yeah, I want to see him too. They're like, "Really? Is this a joke?"
But he went through all that,
Mhm.
all
That
those
was prior
others.
to.
Well, that's what I'm
Way
saying. But
prior. But right before he went and slew Goliath, that nobody else could do. So David was the recipient of God's power in a positive way.
In all the caves.
And okay, it wasn't all of them because we know of 2, but there was probably more. David's a guy I kind of admire because I think David and Peter are 2 guys that we can relate to.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the 2 guys I can't relate to, and so that's why I put them on a pedestal, is John the Baptist and Moses. I mean, both of those guys, I don't think I would have made the good decisions that they made.
No,
don't forget Nathan the prophet.
And, Nathan
Because
and
you look, God told you to get up, go tell the king what he did.
Joshua, Daniel.
Anyway, Moses didn't have a perfect record either because, whenever God, he told him to strike the rock and,
That's the only thing we know he did that.
yeah.
You know, that
I don't know. He was the kind of
and
like,
see, that's the only place that I can
Yeah,
relate
I know
to
that,
Moses is
yeah.
when I might have done the same thing, but
Well, think
The
about
rest-
it. Moses, he
Didn't you
didn't
do-
want to go back to Egypt.
No, he fought it all the way. God told him, he said, are you, am I not the God?
and I'm a guy that should know those were the whiniest group of people. All the way, as soon as they got out of sight of Egypt,
And then
of
they
the city they were in,
Onions and cucumbers.
Goshen, they were they were the whiniest,
Oh, yeah.
complainingest group of people.
Well, I saw what, that broke me up from doing much complaining because I saw what God did to, what was it, Korah and his rebellion?
Yeah, opened up the
The,
sheet, and I don't.
oh,
I'm kind of, I can relate to God in that because,
You get irritated.
if I'm teaching something and some kid raises their hand, I think they have a comment, I gotta go to the bathroom. Or when I hate, it's cold, turn off the air. Who are you to interrupt what I'm
Oh,
doing?
I know.
Whiny little complaint, little brat, I have actually called him that. I said, don't ever interrupt me with something that's silly again. This whiny, complaining stuff, or, well, I could do it too about the lunches, but, the point I'm trying to make is this. They had already seen God's power, Christ's power, in feeding the 5,000. Now they have 1,000 less. And so, and have you noticed? They've got 1,000 less people and they got more bread and fish, than they had before. What are we going to do? Had they done something a little bit, what am I trying to say?
Let's
Maybe a
do
little
that.
bit disrespectful, like saying, we gonna do your little bread thing again, I think I would have understood that more. But they didn't, they just said, you can't do it.
Well, you seen him walk on water. You seen him feed 5,000 with nothing.
And raise the dead.
Raise the dead.
And make the blind see. and-
Right. Cast out
all these
demons.
things.
Even the demons, remember when it came to the demons and they said, have you come here before? And what cracks me up, if you read it, said even the demons knew who he was, said, why did you come here to torment us before our time?
even made the lame to
But
walk.
also, they had, after it was over, I was looking down here, they had 12 baskets before, they only got 7 this time. of extra
They
bread.
try to keep prime numbers out here. I know 7's a prime number. We like even numbers. We don't like prime numbers.
So,
No, do you think that how much more do I have to do to prove to you who I am?
mhm.
I just want to know how he did it.
Yeah, I kind of do too.
Seriously.
Yeah, we can ask him when we get
What
there.
was it noticeable? Where if you're like handing a bread and it grows, or
Mhm.
any
Right,
number
you
of
have it,
ways.
and you keep
And
up with
was
the same
it-
loaf.
At the end, they think, how did this happen? Then it wouldn't be so memorable if they'd actually seen something with those loaves and fishes.
Yeah,
That did. I know they picked up the junk afterwards, but
Mhm.
if they didn't see it, if you didn't see that bread doing something when it was passed along, if they just reached into the magician, when you reach in and the popcorn keeps coming out.
Maybe it was hidden, Vicky,
Yeah.
in the basket.
Well, that's what I say, if it was that way, you wouldn't necessarily know it
Well, it had like the joke little boy.
as to be extraordinary.
And I kind of feel that it probably was not as noticeable because
He
the only
tells
reason I'm saying that is because that's the way all of Jesus's miracles were.
They're subtle.
They were very, subtle is a word, they were very nondescript.
Well, what
You
about
know-
the Roman centurion? He
Yeah,
came there and said, hey, my manservant's sick, blah, blah, blah. I'm in charge. He was a centurion. He had some clout. And he said, I tell this one to go and he goes. I tell this to come. He
had
said,
ears.
Lord, just say the word.
But even so, whatever was done before with the 5,000. And, it really makes no difference to me whether you could see something happen. Something had to happen.
And it's like going to the
No.
But
Grand
even,
Canyon.
even when he tells them when he hear, he doesn't really hear them, he knows what they're saying.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, he's mad because we didn't bring bread. You
Or-
know, his referrals of the yeast in the Pharisees, and
Mhm.
or
they,
like
they always miss the boat like I do, so. most
in
of
the creation, whenever he spoke and it was so, I know I've been to the Grand Canyon. And I mean, I was marveled. I said, God, you spoke, and all this was so, you know,
Yeah, I've never seen, I've seen Grand Canyon from the air, but
yeah.
I've seen Hoover Dam.
I mean,
But
you
that's
know, it's
man-made,
kind of
but
like what
Still, it
the
works on
Queen of
God
Sheba
based
says,
stuff.
only the half has ever been told if you haven't
The
been
thing
there.
is, they still should know. I mean, even if they just reach in the basket and it keeps having stuff in it,
Yeah,
you know, you
that's
throw
what
the
they
same
said.
little valve
So-
20 times.
I got one
Or
bad.
even if all of a sudden the baskets just fill and then you empty them, they fill again, yeah.
Yeah,
What was that
Um,
movie with Jim Carrey where God gave him some of his powers? You see, it's a real subtle thing.
Bruce all.
Yeah, Bruce Almighty. He's
Bruce Almighty.
walking down the room with a water bottle and he's poured into a jar, and you see the wine.
Mhm.
It's very subtle. He's talking and walking, and it's like it's a water bottle, but when he pour it, it's wine. It's red wine. How did you get clear liquid to red wine? Sort of like changing the.
And yet, you know, when you see the movie descriptions of Jesus turning the water into wine, it's not subtle in the movies. There's always bubbles and
Oh,
stuff
yeah,
and
yeah, it's
smoke
got-
or
that's
flames or something.
that's probably
When
weird.
probably, well, I mean, you gotta give them some poetic license, but I don't really think that happened, or
No.
that happened. All right, now, this is over. It happens the same way. In verse 39, and sending away the crowds, Jesus got into the boat and came to the region of Magadan. I think this may actually be the same Megiddo. Magadan.
Megiddo.
This is where Pharaoh Necho of Egypt, evil king, kind of evil, he just was godless, and he
Like a
beat,
dark equivalent of evil.
King Josiah, who was a good king.
Yeah, King Jehovah.
And this is, by the way, the Hebrew word for mountain is Har. Har. Har Magadan. This is the place that is referred to in Revelation as Armageddon. 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 And this is what's going to be in Revelation in this place, a symbol of evil overcoming good. Because Necho overcame King Josiah on these plains. The Jews understood this, but in those days, no one does anymore. They think Armageddon is the end times and stuff like that. The great feast between the great battle between the beast and Gog and Magog and the faithful. And it's not going to happen. It's an actual city, it's an actual region, the plains of Megiddo.
Yeah.
And the mountain of Megiddo, which is
I'm
Har
glad you
Magadan.
pronounced that. I pronounced it.
We usually in Hebrew,
Didn't get it
the
right.
H sound, the H in that is more of a vowel. Har,
My study Bible says that it was also called Magdala, the home of Mary Magdalene,
yeah,
and that Mark called the same city, well, I don't even know, Dalmanutha. So I've never heard Dalmanutha. I have the other referred to as,
well, and you have to understand that,
what you call it, Megiddo or Megiddo?
well, it's called both. I mean, you have to understand that there are several languages alive in this place that
Aramaic.
call things, well, there's Hebrew,
Hebrew, Arabic,
then Aramaic, then Greek,
Greek, Latin.
Latin,
Yeah.
and probably others.
Local
Canaanite.
Canaanite, local
All
dialect.
these places have Moabite, Hittite, Philistine names,
That's right.
you know, and so and I said at the beginning, this may actually be Magadan or Megiddo. But it may not do. I mean, this seems to be so close. But it depends on what language you're dealing with, and what group of people who have been calling this thing what for so many generations, and it could be called so many different other things. And it's interesting that you brought up Mary Magdalene, because there is so much, I want to call it misinformation about Mary Magdalene. And the sad thing about that is the same as there's so much misinformation about Mary, the mother of Jesus. And the fault is ours in the church. Because since there is so much false information, we never teach on either of those women. Have you noticed? How many lessons, including mine, have you heard on Mary Magdalene?
Well, it says that Mary was from Magdala.
Yeah. Was it Magdala or Magda? I'm not sure.
It seemed like I never.
But how many lessons have we actually heard on Mary
I
Magdalene?
never heard.
I've taught a couple in the past and preached on the resurrection, of which I think we sort of gloss over Mary's role in this. But we shouldn't, because in the story of the resurrection, she has a huge, huge role to play. She shows a lot of the things that we know about the resurrection. But then, what got me one time, I was in Missouri, and two things. One is she did not recognize Jesus at first. And the other thing is, Jesus, when she came to him, said, "Stop clinging to me, for I've not yet ascended to my Father." All right. Well, we had these miraculous things that people came up with on the spot. Number one, she didn't recognize Jesus, and Jesus didn't want her to touch him because he was in a transitional phase.
I think is, could you imagine
No, he wasn't.
being that devoutly following somebody and all of a sudden he's
Well,
gone? And, I mean, I can understand her
why
being just
didn't she
emotionally
Why
distraught.
didn't she recognize him? There is one easy explanation for why didn't she recognize him. She had just gone to the tomb and he was not there. She's distraught and she's crying. If you're crying, how much did you see? Did you pass a eye test? You know?
Well, my thing is you go in and there's two
She
angels
sees a
standing there.
figure blurry, And then when he says, "Stop clinging to me, for I'm not yet ascended to my Father," he wasn't in a transitional phase. He is saying, "Mary is okay. This is all planned. We've got work to do." Because then he immediately tells her, "Go and tell my disciples. We've got stuff to do, a limited time to do it. Go and tell my disciples, because these things have to happen." He's telling her, "If stop clinging to me, don't cry.
Yeah, don't cry. Don't make nuisance
Don't
of
be
yourself.
upset. I'm here.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. Stop crying."
But what about the two angels? You go into this tomb and the angel tells you, I mean, they're angels. Why did she recognize them as angels?
She didn't. I mean, and she is extremely upset because they've stolen.
Which was a common practice there.
Well, yeah, and plus was actually wanted to happen by some. And she is, and you have to walk with her to the tomb before any of this happens for a minute and think of what's going through her mind. She is absolutely, I don't want to say this the wrong way, but it's true. She is absolutely in love with Jesus and the idea of Jesus.
Right, yeah.
That's where all this.
And she is at the end of her relationship with Jesus in her mind.
Right. He's dead. He's gone.
She is going
This relationship has been
to
terminated.
she's going to do the last thing that she can do for this man who meant so much to her. And it's a very emotional time. I mean, if you've ever lost a loved one, this is the equivalent of going and making the funeral arrangements, except you're going to be the one that's doing
Yeah.
the preparation,
The preparations,
you know?
Yeah.
So this is not an ordinary day. and she's not thinking clearly, and she shouldn't be, and we shouldn't expect her to be.
She's real fragile at this time.
And this is to me evidence of the love that she had for the master. This is not evidence that this was her husband and the father of her children and stuff like that.
No, it was more platonic.
Yeah, this was and I don't know, maybe we've just got dirty minds, but a man and a woman cannot love each other without it being romantically love each other, you know?
Stockholm syndrome.
I think
The
that
person
Jesus-
that rescues, or even the person that takes you, people have an emotional connection one way or the
I'm
other.
talking about between Jesus and that.
I know, but
He cared very much for her. That is obvious. And she cared extremely much for him.
She wasn't a prostitute, was she?
You know,
I mean, I heard
the
somebody say that.
answer is no.
No, I didn't think so.
Well, the answer is not yes or no. One of the popes declared that she was a prostitute.
No, Jesus, she's a prostitute.
Dude,
She's supposed
that's-
to.
And the Mary that washed Jesus' hair, washed Jesus' feet with her hair and tears and stuff, one of the popes declared that that was Mary Magdalene.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all
That's,
right.
and, well, the thing is, there are people today that believe very strongly both of those things. And I would say that, and this is
but
just,
she could have been,
she could have
by,
been,
by the incidents.
but she
And
doesn't have to have been.
that's what I say, it's not
But
a,
I think if she was named after that town, Mary of Magdalene or whatever, she had some prominence, because it's like Leonardo da Vinci.
You named everybody in those days
I
after
mean-
their town, or at least you described them by where they were from.
Right, Mary's from this town.
Yeah, so, and it would kind of be necessary because there were so many Marys.
Just
In
kind
the
of
story of
you know,
Jesus, you have to differentiate them some way. Mary, the mother of Jesus, Mary Magdalene, sometimes they even call her just the other Mary.
of
You know, that,
yeah.
there's a bunch of Marys, kind of like Ella and Joe's.
I'm looking at Megiddo,
Uh-huh.
and supposedly through Mark, just a point of interest,
Mm-hmm.
it's on the shore of, I can't find it, but it's on the shore.
Mhm.
Megiddo is not, it's right here, located on the map. I can't find the other one, but Mark describes where it is, and says it's on the shore.
It just occurred to
So-
me. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Is Megiddo on the shore? Or the Sea of Galilee even?
It's on the Great Sea, which is,
Mediterranean?
yes,
Okay.
I couldn't say the
So
word.
it could be.
Maybe Mary had a father come, he looked at you like a father.
Well,
You know what I mean, like a savior in the sense, a father.
I think what we do is, I think that what was done in the Middle Ages with Mary Magdalene, I think we tend to inject something dirty into everything that we possibly can.
well, they claim those Ethiopian people, she went there and had Jesus' kid.
Yeah, that's
And
part of
those are the
that.
monks and
yeah,
rabbis of the lost tribes, supposedly.
The supposed idea is, when we get into it, that she went into she left on a boat and wound up in what is present day France.
He started the monastery or started.
No, just landed there with the child, the girl child of hers and Jesus's, and her descendants became what's called the Merovingian kings, who are gone now. But this is the sangreal, the holy blood or the holy grail.
Yeah, I think
You
if
know.
Jesus would have children and got married, then he
I
would
looked
said that.
into it for a while till it got way too
Come
fairy tale-y,
Yeah.
you know. way too fairy
It
tale-y and
is.
stuff.
Oh, yeah, Hollywood again.
Well, you
Mary-
can love somebody.
Well, the point I'm trying to make is this. There's nothing dirty in the story at all. For some reason, we're not able to accept the fact that a man and a woman, or a male and a female, can ever have a friendship that is not
Well,
sexual in some way.
Jonathan and David, they don't want to say that was a homosexual thing, and I mean, we know better than that.
Yeah, and, And well, in fact, I am sure that, well, Barry and I have one thing in common. We work very closely with others in a very female-dominated profession.
Yeah,
And, you know, I have never in 30 years as a teacher been faced with any colleague wanting to have that kind of relationship with me. I mean, it's never happened. Men and women can work together and be together and even have a very close friendship without anything sexual ever being introduced.
that's
I
true.
think we're sort of getting out, when we talk about Mary Magdalene and Jesus and all of these Da Vinci Code things, which even Dan Brown it says is nothing, he's making it up. And we tend to put that on that relationship. I think we are the ones with the problem.
Because
It's- Go ahead.
I had a lot of friends who were male in my profession, like I worked for Anesthesia Associates while I was close to a lot of the men in there. But I'm like you, I never had that kind of, they were just good friends, you know?
And you,
And we had a good relationship.
well, in jobs like yours and Barry's and mine, you kind of have to depend on who you work with, whether
Yeah,
they be
yeah, you had to pick
or
and choose.
female, you know? Okay, that's not fair, so I didn't do this.
I often thought though sometimes it was because of my position, because I knew a lot of people who did this way.
Well,
And I think
unfortunately,
everybody knew I wouldn't, and they did it, and they were my good friends, and
well,
became great friends,
I have
but I thought it
known,
was because they knew who I was.
I have known some too, that I stuck up for and said they're not, and turned out later they are. But in my own case, if it's all I can talk about, no, it's never happened.
Because I know whenever I worked for Anesthesia,
This wouldn't work.
I've never even had,
they trusted me and I trusted them, you know?
never had not one woman ever, what's the
Put
make
moves
a
on.
pass at me, you know, at all, ever. Not one woman I worked with ever did. All right, 406. This is one of the songs we sing at funerals in Kentucky, but it's not one I hate. Usually the ones we sing at funerals, then is I just can't stand listening to them, but I like the song.
Written depressed,
Oh,
more
wow.
It
depressed.
was actually written by one of my
Alfred
grandmother's boyfriends back in the hills. She used to date him, I think, or used to be a friend of hers anyway. Don't really know what the full story was. I mean, she's passed away, so she's probably not going to tell us anything, but they knew each other.
She said, oh, I love this song.
So if you stand in need, respond to the Lord's invitation. We come this together, we stand, and then we sing. Some glad morning when the sun is over, I'll fly away to a home on God's celestial shore. I'll fly away. Oh, I'll fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away. When I die, hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Barry, would you please close in prayer?
Sure. Dear Lord, we thank you for this opportunity to come here, to worship, to sing songs, to listen to these lessons. We ask you to always bless this congregation and keep it here, if it be thy will. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
And never forget about your power, God.
All right, let's see, today was, I don't know if the groundhog saw a shadow.
Bo
Yeah.
did not see it.
Huh?
Bo did not see
You
it.
talking about Bo, the one that lives in North Georgia?
Yeah, Georgia.
That
Well,
was
we're
Tony
gonna go
Bell.
with the southern
He saw it.
groundhog. And then the
And
northern,
then that tragic one is the one in
The
New
southern
Jersey. Something Mel died yesterday,
Yeah.
the groundhog, and so they had to use one of his cousins because they can't get one of his babies because groundhogs hibernate. So they used one of his cousins at the last minute So I'm not really sure that that one's even valid. And I told the kids that in this part of the country, I told them today, that in this part of the country, we don't really have the groundhog to do. So what we're going to start doing is in every class in a public school, we're going to find a child that looks the most like a groundhog.
There you go.
You're going to have to stand outside. And so I sent a kid out every class period. They said,
Please don't let it be.
did you see a shadow? And so there was actually kids that were proud. They looked like a groundhog, you know. Had the boys with the scruffy beard, you know, that would go outside. I didn't see my shadow. I'd say, good, no more winter, you know.
Yeah, only God knows that, you know?
And, you know, teacher said that in the next trailer said, what were you doing? I said, you wouldn't believe it if I told you.
That's it. I don't want to take it. I want to be.
Because behind my trailer is a big construction zone for the ball field now. It's I'm gonna go out there. Do you see your shadow? Yeah. Oh. All right, guys.
Don't mess with them too
What's the
much.
school's name gonna be?
I don't know.
I thought it was like all one now.
Oh, right now it's called Bryan County Middle and High School.
Oh, okay.
BCMHS. And it's no longer the high school and the middle school,
I know, that's what Daddy was telling me at
It's
the
the-
soccer game.
upper school and lower school.
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
And in all fairness,
And I asked her and she had no idea of it.
Shakespeare was right. A rose by any other name. You know, you can call it whatever you want.
Yeah.
Still the same hallways, still the same kids.
Well, she said they call it their lunchroom now, which they didn't before,
Well, I mean,
so.
they've always eaten there. They ate there when I was in middle school. People
Yeah,
come
that's
there
what
to-
she said, but, I don't know, did they build a trail or has it already always been there too? Where they didn't have to get in the rain?
Always been there. It's always happened.
Hope everybody's doing okay.
Thank you.